Today's episode of the Presleevables is brought to you by Tales of Adventure.
First of all, you're going to want to head over to toamagic.com. That's the website for Tales of Adventure, where you can find the best deals on singles and seal product from standard releases all the way up to vintage. For the higher end cards, those cards come with individual scans so you can actually see the card that you're purchasing before you make a decision. Also, be making sure to follow at TOA Michael on Twitter. That's the handle for the store owner, Michael Caffrey. He regularly posts sales and deals throughout the week, so you're going to be wanting to follow that account as well. Lastly, make sure to use promo code Resleevables at checkout for 8% off any order, and keep in mind that all domestic orders are shipped with free tracking. Again, that's toamagic.com, at TOA Michael on Twitter, and use promo code Resleevables at checkout for 8% off of your order.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Presleevables Wilds of Eldraine edition. I'm your host, Cedric Phillips, at Cedric A. Phillips on all the things, and I am, of course, joined by Patrick Sullivan at Basic Mountain on Twitter. Patrick, we have gone through the mechanics, our opening episode. We've gone through the 5 colors of Magic: white, blue, black, red, and green. And now we get to go to, I think, everybody's favorite part of Magic. Everybody loves a good multicolor card.
You and I don't.
I kind of do.
I'm fine with it. I'm just not going out of my way.
All right. Well, I like them.
But I understand we're the exception of the rule.
Yes.
By and large, people do love their gold cards.
Also, we have kind of a new take on multicolored cards now in Magic. So if we think of multicolored cards and gold cards, right, you start with like legends and gold cards, right? And then we did like hybrid mana, right, in Ravnica block. Okay, sure. And then there's like split cards like Fire Ice. That's a multicolored card. Then there's, Wear Terror, and you can fuse it together. That's a different type of multicolored card. Well, now I think there were Aftermath cards that may have been both colors too. I can't remember for sure. If there's not, when we go back to Amonkhet, there certainly will be. And then now we have adventures that are 2 colors.
Yes.
So there's just a lot of different ways to do multicolored cards in Magic.
Yeah, there's no end of design space for multicolored, hybrid mana, activated powers that speak to another color, just you name it. It's unlimited.
And I'm sure I've forgotten some, ways that Magic has done multicolored cards over time. Kicker with kicker being probe with kicker. That's a multicolored card.
Yeah.
Right? Even though it's blue black. Okay. So there's another way to do it. Entwine. So many different ways to do multicolored cards in Magic. We are going to, of course, do our top 5 lists. I am doing things from a competitive and a constructed state of mind. Patrick is doing things from a
game design sort of sense of aesthetics, I guess. Just stuff I like. Designs that charm me.
Things that make him happy.
Yeah.
And that's all that really matters at the end of the day. And this set makes us pretty darn happy. I'm going to kick things off here. Now, this was actually the one area, if you've watched our other episodes, this is the one area where, I actually had 7 cards on my list, and I had to whittle it down to 5. So I hope I get these 5 somewhat close to correct. I'm going to kick things off with Fawn's Bane Troll. It is a big O, and it is black and green as I scroll down to it here on Scryfall. So let's take a little look, Ski-Poo. 2 black, green. 4/4 troll. Okay. Enters the battlefield, create a monster roll token attached to it. I think it's the first monster roll token that we have on our list here. The monster roll token is enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. So realistically, this is just a 4-mana 5/5 trample, which isn't a bad deal. And then you can pay 1 and sacrifice an aura attached to Fawn's Bane Troll. Convenient that it comes with 1. Fawn's Bane Troll fights target creature you don't control. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Activate the fight ability only as a sorcery. So what we're looking at the end of the day here is 4 mana, 5/5 tramp, and then if you need to kill something, you've got the aura to sacrifice to it, and you'd be dealing 4 damage in the fight, not 5, because you're sacrificing, presumably, the monster roll token.
Yes.
So just a kind of a big that can clear the path on its own.
Yeah, like good numbers, potential for card advantage, potential for other synergy if you're doing other roll or aura stuff.
Yep.
Just it's these designs I typically appreciate of the, it just pretty much works on its own, but you can go heavier into it if you want to.
Now, here's what I'll say. This card's definitely going to be a banger and limited, assuming green-black is anything.
Yeah.
I think that much is obvious. Constructed, nowadays, just having kind of a big 4-drop isn't really that big of a deal. But the thing I will say is that because it's in green, it Can be played ahead of schedule, and maybe you can kill them fast.
There's some matchups where this sort of effect is really, really good.
Right?
Like like aggro decks or mid-range creature decks that are lining up a little bit smaller.
Sure.
This sort of thing's really good. Because remember, you can do everything on one shot on 5 mana.
Yep, that's
so if
true.
they tap out and they have a 3/3 or a 3/4, you have more than your money is worth just on that exchange.
Yeah.
And that's not what the card is limited to.
So I'm a fan. I don't know if maybe the game has passed me by and that sort of thing isn't good enough for constructed. Again, mostly standard level play. Really can't see it in other formats, but I'm crossing my fingers on that.
It's a lot better than Spirit Monger. That was a card I was very excited about.
You ain't kidding there, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to your number 5. It is, let's see. I'm going to go with Abra. Dreaming Duelist. You know me in the pronunciations. I'm not great at it. This is number 5 on Patrick's list. It is a blue and a black. So 2 mana, 2/2 fairy warrior. It's legendary. It has flash. It has flying, as all legendary fairies seem to have. And then whenever another fairy enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So this is kind of like the fairy lord, sort of.
Kind of. I appreciate the discipline a lot here. I know that current Magic philosophy, it's been like this for a long time, is you should have 10 gold uncommons at the minimum. 1 for each color pairing, and there's supposed to be a signpost for a particular archetype.
Okay.
I think that's all well and good. No problem with that. That makes sense to me. But often the uncommons are very much in this space of, are you drafting a very particular deck? Do you know what cards to be looking out for to make this thing work?
Yep.
Now, that's a natural thing. Some of these are going to be archetype specific. But if the goal here is to give people some low rarity cards that they can just kind of take and draft around without really thinking about it, you do want a certain level of simplicity to that experience. It's
just kind of loud and in your face, like, here's the thing to do.
You would like to say, take a blue-black card, and then just take the blue and black cards you like, and this card is clearly overrate enough that you don't really care if you're doing the thing.
Okay.
This does a great job of fulfilling both roles. 2/2 flying flash for 2 mana is clearly overrate.
Yep.
Even your novice drafter at a store is going to know, oh yeah, that's good.
Okay.
It tells you that fairies is the thing that is going on in blue-black.
Yep.
It says, hey, keep a lookout for fairies. They're going to be better if you have this card. But clearly, not very much of the rate is nested in that ability. Mm-hmm. It gives the player an idea of what's going on without making the card only work if you know what's going on.
Okay.
So it gives you a taste of what you should be looking out for. But if you're just like, yeah, it's 2/2 flying flash, I don't need to know anything else.
Sure.
It works that way too.
Sure. That's true. And, if you're a blue-black deck, you know a ton of fairies, it's probably still going to make your deck.
I'd be surprised if this got cut very often, just because the numbers are really good. But, clearly would work better in a fairy deck. But also, you don't always get to draft every fairy. Also, it is kind of nice. Sometimes with the creature type matter stuff, it can be so loudly, like, the experience. This is ages ago, but I got a Sparksmith, so now I'm taking every goblin.
Yeah, of course.
I have a Timberwatch elf. Now I'm
taking every elf. Yeah.
This one is, if it's close between a fairy and something else, this could be the tiebreaker, maybe.
Yeah.
But you are not committed to drafting nothing but fairies, even with this in your deck.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very good point, too. And that experience of, like, the Sparksmith and the Well-Wisher Timberwatch Elf experience, not really great because you just don't really have any decisions at that point. You're just like, I just got to do this.
Yeah, I mean, what's fun about draft is considering options.
Yeah.
And once you feel like you're painted into a corner of, I have this busted creature type matters thing, so all I want to do is take you to that. I opened up this companion, and now my entire draft is just trying to make my deck legal for the companion.
Yep.
Some of that stuff can feel you're a little boxed in. It's a little prescriptive. This is very much not that, even though the card is relatively simple and does call out the creature type that it is part of.
Pollen Shield Hair is where I'm going for number 4. So this is an adventure, so I get to read 2 cards, one of my favorite things to do. 1 and a white, so it's a 2 mana, 2/2 rabbit, and creature tokens you control get +1/+1. And then for a green sorcery, it's called Hair Raising. That's a cute little pun there. Target creature you control gains vigilance and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So this kind of card is very much incentivizes you to build what I would say is a token strategy. And then so your single green, a Hair Rising is just basically make one of your tokens a big O, and then Pollen Shield Hair can maybe fill your curve, obviously pump your other tokens, and if you get to do both things, you're thrilled. So there can certainly be a turn where you cast Hair Rising and then play Pollen Shield Hair in the same turn for 3 total mana and say, all right, attack with all my creatures, and best of luck to you. So if there's a token deck in Standard or a different format, I would be surprised if this were not in it.
Yeah, especially because you have the non-permanent white and the color.
The Bunny Corn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's they do play in the same sandbox.
Yep.
They're a little bit different. So yeah, there you go. I do like the fact that, this is a mono white card theoretically.
Sure.
But the Hair Raising is so transparently cracked for a token deck that anyone playing with this will draw the conclusion, let me try to figure out a way to get at least a little green mana in my deck.
Yeah.
Even if I'm mono white and I'm just finding, 8 green white dual lands, that's fine because I do want to have the option to do this some amount of the time.
Yeah, I want to maybe get a little something in there. So it does steer your deck building a little bit because, of course, you're going to want tokens, and then you're going to want green mana, and you're going to want to be green and white Selesnya based. But, now it's about figuring out exactly what are the right cards to put in that type of strategy, and this is almost certainly one of them. For Patrick, his number 4 is, let's go with Troyan. Troyan. Gutsy Explorer. 1, a green, and a blue. So it's going to cost 3 for this legendary Vidalcan Scout. It's a 1/3, and it's got some abilities. You can tap it to add green and blue mana. Spend this mana only to cast spells with mana value 5 or greater, or spells with X in their mana cost. You can also pay blue and tap it to draw a card and then discard a card. So a little bit of a looter action, and then some big mana too.
Yeah, I mean, this is 2 great tastes, taste great together. Mana for when your hand's loaded, looting for when your hand is not ready to go. In addition, I like that the card is often, like, when I play this on turn 3, you are definitely going to be threatened to buy it.
Yeah, you're thinking about killing this.
Even though some amount of the time it's just a 3-mana looter.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if your opponent wastes a removal spell on it, there's going to be some games where you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Those other games where you're like, I don't care.
Well, there's also kind of the natural, okay, so my mana creature died, and I care about that, but it sort of implies that I have stuff in my hand, and I've cleared out a removal spell at least.
Yeah.
There's a little consolation prize that comes along with it.
Yeah, okay.
Simple, but it reads very much like a green-blue card. It speaks to a lot of green-blue stuff, both in the set and sort of historically. And again, this is another one that is really simple. You don't have to be drafting around it for it to be a card you first pick and then are very satisfied having drafted first.
Yep.
And, it's sort of a recurring comment I have about the uncommons in this set is it looks like there's a lot more, just take this and don't worry if you don't know the set all that well.
Sure.
And I think sometimes their uncommon cycles can go a little extreme in terms of referencing the set mechanics.
Oh, they
being
definitely
overly
can.
complicated, not actually being good in your deck some amount of the time.
Yep.
And these are a lot more just front-loaded good stuff. They definitely make sense for the color combination, but if you were coming into the format cold, you wouldn't feel like an idiot at the end for having first picked one of them.
Let's go to number 3 for me. It is Twinning Twins, and this is going to be another adventure card, so 2 cards to read. I don't know why I like this card so much, but I really do, and I hope it's good. 2 blue, so it is a 4-mana fairy wizard with flying, vigilance, ward 1 for a 4/4. Okay. And then Swift Spiral for 1 and a white instant, exile target non-token creature, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So just like 4 mana 4/4 flying vigilance ward 1. Oh, seems like a pretty good deal. It's not like the best deal in Magic history, but it seems like a pretty good deal.
I know why you want this card to be good.
Why?
Because it's really fun.
Okay.
And this is the type of card that should be good.
It reads
You're getting
good.
4 mana Sarah Angel with ward 1 and a reasonable other option.
Yeah.
On the adventure part.
It just reads like a good card. Now, Swift Spiral, a couple of notes here. 1, you can't exile a token creature, so sometimes you can do that. This is one of the times where you can't, of course. If you could, then it wouldn't come back. Okay, so great, that's gone. And then Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So sometimes those blink effects happen immediately, like momentary blink. Sometimes it's at the beginning of the next end step, like this one here. So that's a small thing to keep track of. Excuse me. Now it does say exile target non-token creature, so it could be yours or theirs. So that's good to know. Sometimes it can only be your thing that you can do that with. So there's like a lot of there's a lot of versatility in that. And then just, this just feels like a big blue creature that's just going to give some beatdowns in the air.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a super appealing design.
Yeah. So it reads powerful to me. I don't know. We'll see over time if it's actually the kind of thing that people want to be doing or not. But I feel like it might be pretty good. Now, this one, I don't know how good it is, but it's a member of the Sweet Tooth clan. So I'm a big fan already. Number 3 here for Patrick. Greta Sweet Tooth Scourge. 1, a black, and a green. So 3 mana, 3/3. Legendary human warrior. Great artwork on this card. When Greta Sweet Tooth Scourge enters the battlefield, create a food token. All right, a little value up front. You can pay a green and sacrifice a food to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You can only activate that ability as a sorcery. And then 1 and a black, sacrifice a food. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Why do you like this card?
A lot of the food stuff is kind of naturally going to end up as being a green-white thing because green is going to be the loudest color about food. Green and white have a history of life gain sort of matters as something. A lot of food designs also make sense in white. So it's reasonable for green and white to get the lion's share of it, or at least a lot of it.
Okay.
But to me, it's at its core a green-black mechanic. Green for all the reasons mentioned, but also gaining life is the thing that black cares about, and certainly sacrificing permanence is black.
That's a black
one
thing.
jam.
Yep.
So I like giving the green-black element of food a really loud nod because I think that it should be number 1 by far in terms of 2 color pairings that care about food.
Okay.
This is, I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit. A lot of things I like about the other 2 designs, I love here. Card very clearly just works on its own.
Yep.
You do not need to be doing anything special to have this be a useful card, be one of your better cards in draft, whatever. But again, it's telling the person who's opening this for the first time and maybe doesn't know the set, look out for food. Not that you have to do it, but clearly this is better if you've got more options.
Yep.
Love it.
I'm going on number 2 then. Pretty straightforward design there and a good one. I have an Elusive Otter, which is another adventure card. Single blue. Prowess. 1/1. Creature type otter. Love that. And then creatures with power less than Elusive Otter can't... Creatures with power less than Elusive Otter's power can't block it. So if it's a 4/4, then 3/3s and below cannot block it. Okay. There's Grove's Bounty. This is the adventure part of the card. X and a green. For a sorcery, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. So, here's someone who's played, base prowess decks in the past. Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage. Of course, they play Ragavan too, but most of their threats are 1 mana, and then sometimes they would play Sprite Dragon or something, some 2 mana threats, depending on the format, right? So, is it base prowess decks are still a thing? I think this card kind of naturally slots in, because it's really hard to block. Now, I think you could argue all the prowess creatures are hard to block, but it's got to be nice sometimes where one of them can't be blocked. And then if there's a reason to maybe build a green-blue version, of which I don't know if there would be, okay, well, you've got this card if you draw it later in the game where you just get to fire off counters onto stuff and then also trigger prowess. I don't know, this seems like a really good deal for 1 mana.
I think this thing is cracked. This thing is just so damn good.
Okay, okay.
So, yes, it is true that in your prowess decks you can occasionally just... power past blockers.
Yeah.
But 1, that's not always true. Sometimes their blockers are big enough or have enough, gaining life type of triggers, whatever, where the defense gives them their time to find their removal, play their sweeper the next turn.
Okay.
Also, sometimes it's, you can only fire 1 bullet. You do your thing, you power out all your blockers, and now you've got some 1/2s left over. And if they play a follow-up creature that's big, now you're in some trouble.
Sure. Okay.
So this, the creatures with power less than Elusive Otter's power can't block it. That's a real thing for this style of deck.
Yep.
Because the attack you can't block, and now instant speed, burn spells, cantrips, whatever, all do its thing. Also, something that happens a lot of the time with prowess decks is you have your initial offense blunted, and it's really hard. You just don't have enough cards that do stuff. You have a lot of 1-mana creatures and then cantrips and lava spikes and lava darts.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, your deck is really good coming out of the gate, but if you run up to a brick wall, you just really don't have that much recourse. Having an out that's an X spell in particular is so nice for this style of deck, because you just want... Game goes on for a long time. I got a bunch of lands. I can't do anything with them because my deck's all cheap stuff. And maybe I have 1 or 2 cards in this deck that draw cards. I'm just waiting for one of them. The rest of the deck is nonsense.
Yep.
And just be able to go, here's a bunch of tokens. Hit you in combat. Also play this left over. And now I have a bunch of big stuff and also something smaller that maybe you can't block next turn no matter what.
Sure.
So like a really efficient distribution of stuff.
And also, if memory serves, I might be wrong about this, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Like, didn't the Prowess deck start playing Underworld Breach?
Sometimes, yeah, you can do a little bit of that.
Yeah, like you could have like a decent Underworld Breach turn.
You have, I mean, if you have Lightning Bolt and Mishra's Bauble, and of course you do.
Yeah,
then,
sure.
Then, yeah, Underworld Breach is certainly slots in.
So, like, if you do like a Breach turn that involves Baubles and Bolts, and this thing's in play, and you're just like, okay, this thing's like a 6/6. Like, I don't know how many spells you generally play on the Underworld Breach turn, but I'm going to say let's just conservatively say 4.
Yeah.
Like, it's Breach, like 2 Baubles and a Bolt. Okay, sure.
Metamorphose.
Yeah, sure. And now you're just like, okay, so this thing's like a 7/7 now. You ain't got anything big enough to block this. And I've domed you a couple times with Lightning Bolt. Like, I could see where that's just where a lot of the time it would be Swiftspear or Soulscar Mage, and they're just like, yeah, it's big, but like I have garbage to block it. This thing's like, no, you're dead now.
The short of it is, the prowess decks need just a ton of 1-mana creatures. You can't get away from that.
Yeah.
You need to get on the ground and start. Your cantrips can't just be spinning your tires. You've got to be running downhill as a result of doing all of this.
Yep.
But the more 1-mana cards that you add in the deck to facilitate your most explosive draws come at the expense of being able to hang around later in the game.
Yep.
So you have Bedlam Reveler sometimes in these decks, or you have had in the past, where it's so bad in my opening hand, but this is the only thing that lets me keep up if the game goes a certain way.
Yep.
How many of those am I supposed to play? You draw the second copy, you really feel it because there's no way to do the thing.
Yep.
This is kind of the best of both worlds, where yes, it is a 1-mana play, but it is also something that can be useful if the game slows down, where most of your 1-mana cards just don't do very much once the game gets to that point.
Well, that's a 1-mana play. I got a lot bigger than a 1-mana play coming at you. If things are going right for Patrick, it's the Goose Mother. Green, blue, and X for a legendary creature, Bird Hydra. It's a 2/2 to start. However, it can get a lot bigger than that. 2/2 flyer, I should say. The Goose Mother enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. When the Goose Mother enters the battlefield, create half X food tokens, rounded up. That's weird, but okay. Whenever the Goose Mother attacks, you may sacrifice a food. If you do, draw a card.
Clearly, the comparison is Hydroid Crisis.
Yeah.
Not, and I'm sure this design was inspired by Hydroid Crisis at least a little bit.
Sure.
I like this design a lot more than Hydroid Crisis.
Same.
There's so much of Hydroid Crisis is just dump all my mana, don't care what happens. This card, you definitely care what happens, because it's a lot stronger if you can keep it around, because it has a lot better size to mana ratio than Hydroid Crisis, and you also only start drawing cards if you get to untap and attack.
Yep.
But it's still not just dies to Doomblade, because if you X it up for enough, you have your food left over, which you do whatever you want with it. So in terms of getting the Hydroid Crisis experience, but a little bit more, just cast the thing, because it's not... Hydroid Crisis just scales indefinitely. Like, 20 mana. Okay, cool. This card, the Goose Mother, gets to a point where it's kind of all the same card.
Sure.
It's got a ton of stats, and I have more food than I could possibly use.
Yep.
So instead of just sitting there and waiting all day, you just kind of cast it for like 4 or 5 when it makes sense.
Okay.
And then you just move on with your life, and you're kind of happy with any outcome.
Also, I imagine there's probably a game that happens, right, where, let's say you have 8 mana, okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm going to cast this for 6 so that I can sack a food token and gain 3 life, right? So there's a little bit of like variability on how... It's not always going to be just, I have 8 mana, all right, 8, cast this thing, right? There's going to be some different games.
Yeah, because of just the nature of the scaling.
Yeah.
Leaving 2 up to food or 2 up to have protection for this thing.
Yep.
Whereas Hydroid Crisis, again, you're so not invested in it surviving
No.
That you're just like, all my mana go.
Yeah, take
And
my
you're
life,
getting-
take my cards.
And I'm getting paid off in life up front. So even if you have some sort of response to I tapped out for Crisis, I have cushion to work with because
Yeah.
I just gained 5.
Yep.
Here it's, no, if you tap out and this thing dies, like you're kind of up against it the next turn.
It's not good.
You don't gain the life up front, and gaining the life involves the use of mana or something else that allows you to sacrifice your food. But the upside of this is, yeah, it's a 4/4 flyer that comes with a food, and if you get to the next turn, you can draw a card and maybe more.
Yeah.
Great. Really good way of speaking to the Hydroid Crisis experience, but also improving on the places where that card was maybe not a great design.
Number 1 for me, maybe it should have been number 2. Maybe the Otter should have been number 1. I don't know. I've gone with Decadent Dragon, which is another adventure card. So this is a 4 mana, 4/4, 2 RR dragon, of course. Flying Trample. When Decadent Dragon attacks, create a treasure token. Okay. Let's take a look at the adventure portion of it. Expensive Taste for this dragon. 2 and a black instant. Exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. So, first thing I thought about when I read this card was Expensive Taste, and the fact that I can play these cards for as long as they remain exiled, so I don't have to control the dragon, and I can play land off of them. So that's great, because sometimes there's a restriction where you can't play land, or if the dragon dies and you don't get access to the cards anymore. I'm always going to get those cards. Now, I don't know what those cards are going to be, but I always get them. Cool. And the dragon, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with the 4/4 Flying Trampler, and presumably you're giving beatdowns if you're playing it and generating some mana off of it. Just seems like 2 good deals. Definitely a standard card. I don't think it's a Pioneer or a Modern card, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a format-defining card for Standard at all.
And I also really like that, much like Ragavan, the exiling effect does not mana wash. You actually need to cast the thing, which means that the treasures really matter. Because if your red-black deck hits white cards off your opponent's deck, then you're not really doing anything. So maybe this is a 5-color enabler. Maybe this is dragons with a treasure theme. Maybe this is a sideboard card for the red-black mirror because I always know I'm going to get my money's worth.
Sure.
There's no way to miss. A lot of different approaches to this on a design that's just like really appealing on its own.
Yeah, it's just kind of straightforward. Like everything kind of costs good numbers. I guess I would say, like if Expensive Taste was a sorcery instead of an instant, I think I like this card as much. But the fact that it's an instant is kind of nice. Gives you a little something to do. Maybe I'm bluffing a removal spell or counter spell or something, and then I do that if I'm like Grixis based or who knows what, right? So, or Mardu based. I don't know. It's just kind of it's reads powerful. I don't know if it's more powerful than the Otter. I think the Otter is better in older formats, and this one might be better in newer formats. And then we'll see where things go. Now, number 1 for you. A Boros card for the Boros Mage himself. Ash Party Crasher. It is a red and a white 2/2 legendary human peasant. It has haste and it has celebration. Whenever Ash Party Crasher attacks, if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Ash.
Yeah, I guess how are you not having the best time of your life playing with this card?
Okay.
It's just all the stuff that I want to do. The turn where I play a creature and then play this as my second card. It's like the most fun I've ever had in my entire life.
Sure, 3/3 beatdown.
And it will never get old.
Okay.
I have fun doing that forever.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a very straightforward design.
Very straightforward. This one is actually a little bit more, in contrast to the other designs that I called out, this one is a little bit more like you can actually kind of mess up your draft and have this thing maybe not be great.
Sure.
If you're in big Boros, Celebration might be
Big Boros.
a little bit favorite archetype of the show. Maybe a little bit like underwhelming, but I think people are just going to have the best time possible with this card.
It's a fun card.
Hey, Celebration, it keeps growing. Like your opponent can get out from under it. There's no guarantee that that they can fire off Celebration, but a lot of the value from this thing is accrued on turn after turn. It's not super bursty for what it is, although it does accommodate that play pattern.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is just a lot of fun. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I hope it's fun.
Have a good time.
Celebration's cool, so that works for me. Let's do a rundown of our list here, everybody. Number 5, For me, is Fozbane Troll. Number 4 was Pollen Shield Hair alongside Hair Rising. Number 3 was Twinning Twins alongside Swift Spiral. Number 2 was Elusive Otter alongside Grove's Bounty. And number 1 was Decadent Dragon alongside Expensive Taste. For Patrick, it was cards I'm going to have difficulty pronouncing. Abra, Dreaming Duelist. Number 4 was Troyan, Gutsy Explorer. Number 3 was Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge. Number 2 was the Goose Mother. And number 1 was Ash, Party Crasher. Those are our multicolored card guesses, previews / reviews of Wilds of Eldraine. So we've done the 5 colors of Magic. We did our mechanics breakdown to kick off this run of this set. And of course, we've done our multicolored cards, which means we've got to move on to the artifacts, and one of which everybody's really happy about. Everybody's just really, really excited for Mindstone to effectively be back. The Iron Crag.
Oh my, that card's so different than Mindstone.
It is.
That's why it's my number X design.
Ooh, good
Because-
save. What number could it be?
Because people think it's Mindstone, and it's definitely not, but it's awesome.
Well, there's nothing else left to say.
I'm gonna pull back
Okay.
the robes on the next one a little bit.
Perfect.
You're gonna get to see back in the dressing room
All right.
how they make it happen.
Well, you know what? I got nothing left to say. Our artifact episode is coming up right now.